a Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to talk about, oh, yeah, coping with our feelings. And today I want to talk about happiness. One of the things that people always say to me is, how do I keep such a good attitude? Well, you know something? I am not perfect at it, but I do work at it. I do seriously believe that happiness is a skill. Learning how to be happy is a skill, in my view. And today, what I'm going to do is to talk about some things, and then how to take the feeling that you have that maybe is a bit negative and turn it into something a little bit more positive. Because if you can do that with a lot of things, you end up with a life that is enjoyable rather than just survival or whatever. Hi there, Jody. For those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin. And I want to tell you, I am blessed to have her in that position. She always looks after me, not just during the broadcast, but you'll be amazed how much she does during the week. So thank you very much indeed, Jody. And we will be talking a bit more about Jody in a second. So I just wanted, before we start, just remind you all to follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Hi there, Chris. Good to see you. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, because that's where we put up. We sort of use it as our if you like, family notice board, and also to remind you, if I have any opinions here. I am not somebody with a fancy piece of paper. I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist or anything like that. What the views you will hear are mostly my own, or things that I have managed to research, that I feel that the information that I have is strong enough that it's and from a reliable source, so that I can share it with you. My favorite monk who died recently said, "Smile, just try it, just right now, just smile." And for those of you sitting in the background, I can see you're there, so you smile too. Because I don't know what it is about just smiling makes you happier. Um, but he said, smile, breathe. And if you're feeling a little bit anxious, it's a really good idea to breathe counting. In other words, that you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, lower it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is definite research that shows that if you are counting, you will not be able to feel anxiety at the same time. Now, as soon as you stop, you might get re-triggered, but it's a very important thing to remember if you want to be happy, is you need to just stop for a second, smile, breathe. And then the third thing that the monk said is go slowly. What happens to most of us when we're anxious, when we're not happy, whatever, we're on the hamster wheel. You know what I mean? It's all blah, 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 and what if, and blah, 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 and then what if, and blah, 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 blah. You know, how can anybody be happy doing that? And I wanted to just let you know, from my database, I cannot find that it's anybody's birthday this week. And so if you're a regular viewer and it's your birthday or an anniversary or anything, please let us know so we can add it to our database. And if you've got any news that you'd like to share with the other viewers on any of the other broadcasts, then please let me know as well. So can happiness be taught? I believe the answer is yes. What about you guys? Have you taught yourself how to be happy? And as we go along today, um, I would love input from you as to, what happened that triggered you into a negative thing, and what did you teach yourself to do to turn it around? Because it's not something that we're taught a lot, are you? I mean, how many of you can remember your parents? Probably more so today. I think parents are more aware today than they were in my day. If I was miserable as a child, I was more likely to get a smack for being miserable than to be encouraged to turn, to actually voice my feelings and my frustration, and then to be given help to turn that feeling around. I don't know about the rest of you. What about you guys? When you were frightened, or when you were frustrated, or any of those things, any of those unhappy type feelings, what did your parents do? Did you have parents that changed that with you, or I'd be interested in your input. And by the way, if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to add your comments there, because I do read those comments when they come through. And I'm pretty good about answering, I would say, almost all of them. Now, if there's one thing I'm proud of, well, one of many things of which I'm proud, but I do really work hard at trying to get an answer to people. Jody is saying it takes practice to work on your turnaround time. Yes, I believe it can be taught. Yep, I do too, Jody. So let's talk a little bit about that. The first thing, of course, that we have to remember is that we are now adults. So as adults, it is our responsibility to turn our thinking around, not somebody else's, unless, of course, you have lost control of your mind. And I say it that way because sometimes if you are depressed already, or, clinically depressed, you may need professional help to help you turn things around. So one of the things I always have as a benchmark of my mental health is, can I turn my feelings around? Does that make sense? Because if I can, then I am mentally healthy, and also I like to think emotionally intelligent. All right, I understand that feelings are things that are things over which I have control. For the longest time in my life, I didn't realize that. I thought my feelings were caused by other people's stuff. No, my feelings are my responsibility, and therefore, it's got nothing to do with them. It's how I react to them, or it's how I get frustrated with them, or even angry with them. Um, and it's my job to turn it around. So uh, I also wanted to say that we've had a couple of years of being in pandemic. And how many of you feel that you have taught yourself to be lonely? All right, because and I say that because we had to learn to be okay with being lonely in order to survive lockdowns and doing all sorts of things. But now, as we're getting more free from that, it's time for us to realize, hey, it's time to be happy again, if we possibly can. I want to start off with a fear story, feelings of fear. Well, actually, let me use the example, and then we'll talk about the process, all right, or the things you can do. So, um, some time ago, I went to a chiropractor, and before they did anything to my back, they took an X-ray. And when they did that X-ray, they thought they saw a shadow on my aorta. That's a big pipe. Yeah, with the blood, pushes the blood in and out, or actually transports the blood. So here we go. That's what they thought they saw, was a shadow on my aorta. And I had, I being the person I am, I go, okay, what causes that? No, you better talk to your doctor about that. But we want to send the X-rays to your doctor. Well, I don't know about you. I mean, that alone scared me stupid. And I ended up with an appointment with my doctor, and then I went there. He looked at it and said, no, not a problem. So I said, what would be the reason for that? And he said, well, if it had been what she thought it was, that would mean that there was a swelling in your aorta. And I said, and what would the upside of that one be? And he said, well, it would burst. Because it would be, it would be thinner because of the swelling and stuff. The walls of the aorta would be thinner. And I said, what happens if it bursts? And he said, you'd get one hell of a stomachache, but not for long. Um, my doctor has a very strange sense of humor. Um, so I was thinking that what needed to happen was I needed to understand both ends of that story, right? I needed to know, uh, eh, number one, obviously, what I wanted to hear was that I didn't have a problem. But number two, what if I did? All right. And so I don't know about you that although part of us says, oh, I don't want to hear what the truth is on that one, for some people, they don't. All right. Some people would rather not know, and others actually feel happier when they know. What about you guys? Do you feel that you don't want to know? I've got one person that I know that will not go for any mammograms, will not go for any x-rays and stuff. She doesn't want to know, does not want to know what's going on in there. So that's her right, all right? And the trick is, it's not for me to judge that. That's her body. She gets to say what she wants done with that body. You know, it's not for somebody else. But first of all, if you've got something that's scaring you, that's an unhappy feeling, all right, let's think about this. Number one, it's a really good idea to talk to people and preferably get out and talk to people. So don't just phone them. Um, say, can we meet up for coffee? All right. Can we meet up for coffee? Now, obviously, for some of us, that's a long distance thing to do, but we can do it on Zoom. We can do it on all sorts of things if we want to. So the main thing is there's something about getting out, even in your mind, that helps you overcome some of that fear. And the chances are, if you are talking to somebody that really loves you and cares about you, it might also, in a strange way, give you permission to cry if that's what you need to do. Because, being sad is a feeling that you're perfectly entitled to. There's nothing wrong with your feelings. It's how long you hang on to them. That's the issue, right? So, is it okay to be sad? You bet it is. But from my experience, if you're feeling sad, sometimes the only way out of that is to have a good cry. What about you guys? By the way, Jody just answered on the do you want to know or not know? She's saying, I want to know. Knowledge is power. Yeah. So, people are different. I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. It's like, hey, if you can deal with the truth, that's emotionally intelligent, right? If you can deal with the truth, if you can deal with the truth, then knowledge is power. I agree. But if awfulize everything and will drive yourself deep into depression by knowing the truth, I understand why you don't want to know it. So even if you don't go out and see somebody, one of the things about talking things through with people is you get to verbalize what's going on. Now, again, as all the things that we do, let's turn it around. What if you've got a friend in trouble? How would you help them? When I say a friend in trouble, but maybe a friend is dealing with a terrifying, time. How do you help calm them down? Now, you've all had it happen, pretty sure. So therefore, what have you found that works? Um, from my perspective, it's really important to know the person, because if you know the person well, you will know how to lighten the temperature, if you like. And it's not about telling stupid jokes or doing anything else, but um, I always think about Jody with this one that if I know Jody's having a difficult time with something, I've got one or two little emojis that I send or gifts that I send that I know will crack her up. Why do I know that? Because of experience, right? I don't send them all the time, but when I need her to laugh, I will send them, and it is amazing what that does. And I guess, Jody, I have to ask you, Do you find that that changes your mood for just that split second? I'm not suggesting it changes it for for the rest of the day, but um, Jodie's saying as well that just being present, even through phone calls, texts, etc., is a comfort. Also, laughter is so important. Okay, so I want to tell Jodie's story for a second because you remember what I was saying that I had this situation where they thought maybe because of an X-ray. Well, this week or last week, I think it was, Lionel went for a hearing test, and I have his permission to talk about this, by the way. And when he went for the hearing test, they were a bit concerned because they said on one of the tests going through, I have no idea how that works. Anyway, they thought they had a blockage. Okay, let me try and. This is not going to be a good representation of Lionel's body. Okay, so that's the one ear. This is the other ear. And they send a pulse, okay, through from the one side to the other. And, you can, if you were the person that they're doing the test on, you can either hear that pulse or you can't, and that determines how deaf you are. But what happened, what they said, was when they did some of this pulsing, they found that there was a gap on its way through, which made them wonder whether there was possibly something interrupting the signal. Now, I personally, well, I'll tell you about that in a moment. So, and then they said to him, well, in about 2% of the cases, it could be a brain tumor. So we need to do an MRI. Now, I don't know about you, but that's enough to scare the living daylights out of anybody. So the first thing, if you or somebody you know has that sort of thing cropping up, don't tell them they're being stupid to be frightened. Yeah, that's number one thing. You're not helping lower their temperature by telling them, it's nothing. Of course it's not nothing. It's terrifying. So acknowledge that. All right? Wouldn't you be terrified? So don't minimize it. All right? Make sure that you acknowledge how terrifying that must be. So when you think about it, it is disrespectful in a way to minimize their fear. It's not helping them lower their fear at all. All right. What happens is when you disrespect their fear, they not only have fear, but now they have frustration because you don't understand their fear. Think about that. So anyway, so I thought this was really smart. After Lionel was going to have that test done next week, and he realized that he was scared enough that if possible, he would like to have the test done earlier so that he didn't have to worry about it. The earlier he had the test done, the MRI done, the earlier he'd get the result, and then he could get on with his life. And so he did actually manage to get a cancellation, which was wonderful. So he got to do that test, that MRI. And remember also, if you can put yourself into Lionel's shoes, not only does he have to worry about himself at that moment, but also, as some of you know, Lionel is Jodie's caregiver to a large extent, very large extent. So he's not only worrying about himself, but then he's worrying, well, if this is true, what about Jodie? And I'm certain that Jodie will tell you that her fear is what happened. Obviously, her number one concern is about Lionel. But can you understand? It's perfectly natural, not selfish, perfectly natural for her to worry about what will happen to me. Hi there, Kimmy. Good to see you. What will happen to me? That's perfectly normal. So don't minimize those things. Don't try and to say, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." Da, 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 da. Just go, okay, what's your fear around this? All right. Get the fears, get people talking about their fears. Um, I want to say that I found, let me just finish the story about Lionel. So he went and had the MRI done, and the next thing was they said they would get him the result by next week, which was awesome. And I think we said by today, but he actually got the result within 24 hours, less than I think, which is wonderful. And the truth is that there was no tumor there. So I, of course, wrote to Lionel and said, well, I would have been very surprised if he had anything in his brain. Um, so, which is, of course, a typical response from me. If you know me well, that's not being unkind or anything else. That's the response that you would expect from me. Um, so did I try to be, anything other than who I am? I know. I mean, that's what people love me for. So you look at it and you go, it's important to keep a sense of humor, even if it's tough news. All right. So yeah, Jody's saying that when they got the results, they said the result was normal. And Jody said, normal? I beg to differ. That also made Lionel laugh, right? You see, two people that really care about him mess with his brain. Yes, Kimmy, good for you. All right, so Kimmy's saying that she has a fear of dying and being alone in the future. All right, two different fears, by the way. Those are not joined. Um, and Kimmy, that you can imagine I have that too, and I'm certain most of us do. I don't know many people who are looking forward to dying unless they are in such pain that would be a relief. But you know what I mean? It's just like, but how much time do you spend on it? If it occupies morning, noon, and night, get some help because that's not normal. But if you have every now and then you think about, oh my gosh, what if I'm alone? Well, I know that's my reality. What if I'm alone? What if, I don't mind telling you, Kimmy, I think about what if I had a stroke or something inside the house and nobody knew? I think that's perfectly normal. You don't think that's being negative. Yeah, and Kimmy's saying that's right. It happens just once in a while. And I would say that's human nature. You know, I want to give an example. You all know that I was really, really sick with the flu, not COVID, because I tested, and I'm normal. Well, no, not normal, um, but I didn't have COVID. But I want to tell you, when those first couple of days of having that flu, where every bone in my body and every muscle in my body was so sore, and my head was exploding. If I coughed, I was scared to cough because I knew the pain it was going to cause in my head. And even if I held my head, it was still just horrible. Um, but it was really funny. This goes under another tactic to change your mood, all right? Because what I did is say to myself, Sal, you may be really sore and you are clawing your way from your bed to your couch because that's all you can manage. Think how lucky you are that you haven't got bombs dropping on you at the same time. Do you understand? So what I'm telling myself is, yes, you don't feel well, you're sick, but you haven't got bombs dropping on you, or you haven't had people cut off your heat and your water and your electricity when it is below freezing temperatures. No, you haven't got people bombing your supermarket so that you can't eat. No, so what happened was I would tell myself that, and I went, now then, what have you got? Deal with what you've got. And I want to tell you, if ever you're in a survival situation, Deal with what you've got. Don't dream about what you would like to have. Deal with what you've got. So I went, what have I got? Really nice couch, very comfortable, thank you. And with lots of streaming services. And so therefore, give myself permission to lie on the couch and binge watch. That was, really, really important because I'm not used to doing that, to lie on the couch. And thank goodness that Jody was in touch with me because she kept telling me that, lying on the couch and binge watching and drinking lots of fluids was the best possible thing I could do for myself. And that was not being lazy, that was looking after my body. And so then I could let go of that guilt, all right? Because I'm a doer. I'm a doer. I like doing things. And so it was just like, wow. So when you think about that, it is quite normal to have fear, but you can turn it around to either lessen the fear a bit. Remember what Lionel did? He managed to say, okay, I'm on a mission to get that MRI as quickly as possible. Because then the sooner it's done, the sooner I will know, the sooner I will know what I'm dealing with. I was really proud of Jody and Lionel for organizing that and getting that done. And then I was so grateful that they didn't make them wait. And the fact that they came through with a decision so quickly, you already know that's probably very good news. Because I don't think they'd give you really bad news very quickly and over the phone. So, they do that in person. Kimmy's saying that last week she felt the same and wondered if it was the flu. Yeah. I had people say to me, oh, I wondered whether mine was COVID. Was that a fear? Yes. So how did I turn that around? Well, I thought, well, the way to turn that around is to actually do the test, to do the COVID test. So a neighbor of mine uh, offered to go and get the testing unit for her because she hadn't got one yet. We're entitled to 5 tests for every person in every household. So she went and got hers and gave me one of hers. All right. No, she gave me all 5. That's right. She gave me all 5. Um, so now I don't have to worry about whether I've got COVID or, because if I had, then I knew I was going to have to self-isolate for quite a while and doing all those sort of things. So what I did was I did the test and found out that I had flu. I was correct that I had flu, but I had all the symptoms of flu, but it wasn't the COVID flu. Do you understand there's a difference? Kimmy's asking, I'm confused about where COVID went. The mask wearing was let go. Yes. Where did it go? It's still there. What happens, if I can try and explain it this way, Kim? When we first had COVID, let's say it was strength 10, all right? And then the next bit we had there was a delta, right? And that was, let's say, strength 7, but it was more, and the infection rate was far greater. So let's call that +5. So the total of this thing was greater than COVID in a way. So then we had Omni, and I'm not sure the correct percentages here, Kim, but I want you to understand what happened. Now, Omni was down to about a 4, but it had, let's say, +10 on this side. In other words, it was less likely to kill you, but it was way more easily spread. Now, the thing about where is COVID now, it is out there, still dangerous. But, if you've taken your vaccines and everything, your chances of being hospitalized or dying from it are far less. I think they're saying that of the people hospitalized at the moment with COVID, over 90% of them are people unvaccinated. So that's, I think I got that right. Don't quote me on that, though. So, yeah, and Kimmy's saying she did 2 tests and she was negative. But you understand, it's possible to have the flu, but it's not COVID necessarily. You don't see the reports on COVID anymore, Kimmy. No. Why? Because I think we're moving from a pandemic into an epidemic. That's my feeling. In other words, a pandemic means that it is virulent across the world. An epidemic is a little bit less, all right? And then what will happen is I think COVID will be there all the time. And we will, it'll be part of our annual vaccine. So, and the question is, will we get another wave coming in the winter or the fall? And that's very possible. I was hearing somewhere recently, I don't know if anybody else heard that as well, that there is another wave starting. And so the question is, how dangerous is it, right? So thanks for talking about that, Kimmy, because you're not the only one that was scared of that. Now, a neighbor of mine stopped to chat with me while I was out in my garden this week. And I managed to get outside into the garden. It felt so good. I saw my crocuses and my snowdrops and all sorts of things, and I was happy. I realized that for me, getting out into my garden makes me happy. And I don't know, for those of you, some of you, your pets make you happy, all right? So you got to know what makes you happy, because if you don't know what makes you happy, then how can you turn your mood around? So what I do is twice a day, I try to get outside and get fresh air for about at least 15 minutes twice a day. And it can be very simple. It can be going out to my composter and, putting my compost in there. It can be sweeping leaves that are still flying around. It doesn't have to take very long. I try to make sure I do at least 15 minutes twice a day, or one long thing of half an hour of fresh air. So anyway, while I was out playing in the garden, my neighbor came to me and said, we're going on a trip. And I said, oh, how nice. And being who I am, I said, is there anything I can do while you're away? Because that's what neighbors do, right? And she immediately smiled and said, yes, please. I said, okay, what can I do for you? And she said, look after my cats. Well, I don't mind telling you, I'm not a cat person. So I immediately had fear. They will know I'm not a cat person. Cats are quite clever. So anyway, what I said was, yes, I'd be happy to, because that's what she needed to hear from me. But I would like a backup. And she said, no, not to worry, because the other neighbor, is a cat person, has cats. And she said, I'll make sure that she knows that she is your backup. And I said, yeah, just in case I get sick or something happens to me, that I know that they're not going to be on their own. But can you understand that for a split second I had fear? Why? I don't know what to do with them. And then I turned it around. All right. So how do you take that? What would you do? Right. What would you do in your mind if you knew that you were not a cat person, but you also wanted to be a good neighbor? So I went, okay. So this is a really good opportunity for me to learn more about cats and, to play with them and to be ignored by them and know it's okay. I think that's my thing about cats, right? They don't need you like dogs do. So then I turned the fear, the negative of it, around and said, this could be quite entertaining. Now, what are you scared of, Sal? That's what I asked myself. And I said, what if they get out? What if, and I'm going, yeah, what if they don't? Um, so be, it's good to think of what ifs, but then also remember the what if goes both ways. So what if they get out? Well, yeah, what are you going to do? Make sure when you go in, you're very careful about the door. But secondly, what if they don't? All right. And so, it's like 50% chance either way. So do what you can to protect yourself and the poor kitty cats, and then just move on. So then, but can you see that triggered a fear, and then my job is to turn that around. Um, do you all know that we have a basic need for attention? Right? That normally we talk about that in a very negative way. Oh, they're an attention seeker. Do you know that it is a basic human requirement to have attention? Did you know that? If you want to be happy, you need attention. So if you think about that being a basic need, my question to you is, do you do things that get attention? In other words, have you joined a club and chatted to people? Have you gone to the church and talked to other people? Or do you go to church and wait for people to talk to you? Because, you're scared of the people. Remember that most of the people in church probably would be so happy if you acknowledge them. Just a smile is amazing what it does, right? So think about that. Join a fitness group. We all need a bit more fitness. So what about joining a fitness group? Do something. It doesn't have to be, a put on a leotard type thing. Maybe you join a walking club. Something that gets you around other people, where you are not um, only getting attention, but you are giving attention as well. So think about that balance, all right? If you can do both, you'll be happy. I also want to remind you that one of the ways we get to be happy is if we have a mind-body connection. All right. Now, some of you are big into doing things like meditation or praying, or those are things that are what I call mind-body things that we do. I, when we look after ourselves in that way, it actually helps our psychological well-being. Right? Slows us down, keeps us balanced. It's a really important thing to understand. And if you're able to live off that hamster wheel and just be calm, that whatever's going on the outside stays outside and you remain calm, then you will know that you have learned the trick to happiness. If you think about it, it is all the stuff that makes you unhappy. If you can just remain calm inside, you keep your happiness. Ah, interesting. Kimmy's saying, I found a senior walking club, but it is over now and starts back in November. I was so sad. Um, yeah. One thing, I know this probably won't help you from what I know about where you live, Kimmy, but one thing that I always found was people who live near a big mall of some sort. You know, if you don't want to walk in the rain, go to a mall and walk and watch the children and window shop to your heart's content. It's just like it's amazing how much you walk through a mall, and also how many things bring you great joy. Now, if you spend your whole time going, well, that's a really nice purse, but I can't afford it. Well, that's a really nice dress, but I can't afford it. That is totally the wrong way to go about it. It's like, oh, that is such a pretty purse. One day, I hope I can afford it. If you really wanted that purse, you could start saving, and you could, if it was important enough to you, you could end up having it. The fact that you don't have the money now doesn't mean you won't ever have it, or you see a nice dress. All right, you can do the same thing. It's like, don't spoil your mood with your thinking. All right, and because that's what we do, right? We spoil our mood with our thinking. And getting out into the fresh air, even if you drive to the mall, open the windows, get some fresh air in the car. Fresh air and moving, all right, get your serotonin and your endorphins going. And they will make you feel better and more alive. If you think about it, if you get out in the car, maybe it's just getting in the car because you need to go to the pharmacy and fill your prescription. But if you think about it, your mood changes between when you get into the car and when you come home again. Have any of you noticed that? You see, it's a new environment. You're challenging your brain with new environments, with cars, and you're driving or whatever. Even if you're walking, all right, you're seeing pretty crocuses and snowdrops and things, or you're seeing doggies that you haven't seen. It's all stuff that make you feel better. So now, those of you who know my ongoing saga with Cal, my caloric air fryer, the big challenge was. Oh, I want to tell you. Hang on a second. Right, I've been every day. I try something new with it, and I started the week with making my own dried salmon. Now, for some reason, I don't like baked salmon. A lot of people do. I don't. But do I like dehydrated salmon? It's good. So now we all know that salmon is really good for you. It's omega-3. And it was one of the reasons I wanted this. So now I learned how to dehydrate. It was very exciting. Anyway, every day I did something a little bit different. And then, tonight I'm going to show you how I make more tasty treats, healthier, tasty treats. Anyway, the big one was this oven has a special grill on it. And that goes up to 500 degrees and was meant to cook the greatest steak. How many of you know that after all I've had go wrong with my previous one, I'm trying to swallow the smoked salmon. With all that I had go wrong, I was scared of this thing now, or I was, and that's why I said I have to do something that's going to cause a lot of smoke, burning type thing. And the worst thing that you can do, of course, is literally grill a steak inside, right? And I didn't sort of do anything strange I literally started by just coating it with a little bit of oil, because that will give me the coating I want, all right? And then lots of herbs, peppers and things on it. Fired up to heat it up. Now, in the meantime, I put my big extractor fan that's in my microwave, turn that on. I went, okay. And I was ready for the smoke detector to go off, but I won't mind telling you, I was scared. Can any of you relate to that? Any of you bought a gizmo of some sort, and then been terrified of it for some reason? I think Jody was saying that she remembers that with her Instapot, right? She doesn't like pressure cookers, and I don't either. So I understand that. So, it was just like, the way you get rid of that negative feeling is to desensitize yourself from it, right? And the way you desensitize is that you feel the fear and do it anyway. Terry Cole Whitaker said that. feel the fear and do it anyway. So I felt the fear of what could happen in my house, all the smoke alarms going off again and all that. But I wanted to know, could I cook a steak inside without triggering the fire alarm? Have I learned enough now to be able to do that? So not only did I turn on that extractor fan, I now have a system where in the middle of the house, I have one of those stand-up fans that oscillates like this, big stand-up fan. And whenever I'm cooking anything that I think is going to be smoky, I turn that on and it keeps pushing the air back into the kitchen. All right. So I want to tell you, it was scary. But I want to tell you, it was one of the nicest steaks I've ever cooked for myself. I'm not joking. It was, let me show you. I was so happy that I overcame my fear. So let me get a picture here for you. So when it had finished cooking, it looked like that. And please notice that to me is a serving now of steak. The old days it used to be a complete strip loin. Now I will cut that into 3. This I think was a tenderloin. No, it wasn't a tenderloin. No, whatever it was. What do you call it? Sirloin. So then that's what it looked like when it came out. And then I like mine. This showing a little bit of red. It was perfect. I couldn't believe how perfect it was. And then I tasted it because, quite honestly, it can look good, but you and I both know that you can look pretty good, but then it tastes tough or whatever. It it was amazing. And so. So will I always be sensitive to the fact that I could set off the smoke alarm? Of course, I've had a fire in my house. Therefore, I'm super sensitive to that. So, hey, if I have to do all these little things to keep my smoke alarms from going off while I cook, I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm happy. By the way, Jody said that it's in the 70s in New Hampshire today. And she's opening the windows has already made a positive change in our mood. Yes, it feels like spring. Great stuff. Yes, Jody, and I think when I go to do my 15 minutes outside, I leave the door open. As long as I'm going to be on the property, I leave the door open because I want that fresh air to come into the house. And then, when I finish whatever I'm doing, I come in and I close the door. And that's given my whole house about 15 minutes of fresh air inside it. So I like that system. Did you know that having purpose and goals can change your mood, negatively or positively? But the thing is that if you have, I always quote that thing from the musical South Pacific, if you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? So, do you start each day with 360 things on your to-do list? Or do you say to yourself, if I only did 6, which 6 would I like to get done? And make sure that all 6 are doable in the time frame. And so what I do, my biggest task every day is to take my humongous to-do list and say, okay, I only have to do 6. Which 6 do I want to do? And that makes it, doable for me. But if you are literally sitting there, as we all are, with a list longer than reality, then understand what you're doing to yourself. I have had a week of being sick and not being able to tidy up the house or unpack more or do whatever or put away the stuff I'm still unpacking from the fire. But I realized that I've got somebody coming over tomorrow. Wow, that's exciting. Because that's good for your mental health, right? invite somebody over. And so I'm doing that, and my immediate fear was, oh my gosh, my house is a mess, and I don't have enough time to tidy it. And then I went, it's a mess. Do what you can, and if they judge you for being untidy, then the truth is that would be fair enough. But I also, sent out an email and said, hey, the house is a mess because I've been too sick to get organized this week. So, that's just it, truth. So think about that, all right? Now, you want to know what fear is and why you need to have a look at your life and go, I'm pretty lucky? I was talking to Doug this week, and one of the things that he told me, and he'd researched it in two different places, and I can't remember which two, but both were what I call credible sources in my view. And that is that those Russian soldiers going into Ukraine have a one-way ticket. In other words, they are told as they cross the border by their, commanding officers or whatever, this is a one-way trip unless we win. If we win, you can get out again. And they literally, if any Russian soldier tries to go back to Russia, they're just, killing them. So I'm very grateful that I live in a country that doesn't do things like that. Now, you remember that a couple of weeks back, I said, if the Ukrainian people were clever, they'd take those young people who are used to a non-violent life and offer them a good meal and a warm blankie. And I was interested to hear from Dougie. It's already happening. Now, obviously, some of the Ukrainians are so angry that they don't take prisoners. But then there is this other group that are helping the young Russians. I don't know. To me, I think our world is changing in that way. And that we're becoming, even if this is yet another example of what tyranny is about and what do you call them? Dictators are about. It's like but there is this groundswell for us not to do this to each other. And I love that. I also wanted to ask you, how do you feel about Russia turning off the social media to the Russians? All right. How do you feel about that? And I started to think about that, and I went, I was pretty angry that they would do that, and I was wondering how long it would take the Russian populace to get angry about the fact that they can't get their social media. And then I thought, they're only hearing one side of the story, which is fair enough. But we're only hearing one side of the story, right? Are you listening to Russian views on this or whatever? So if we're only listening to one side, are we any different? That's what I kept thinking about. Are we any different? But, the difference is which side are you on? And so be careful that, you try and find both sides of the story if you possibly can. When we talked about having purpose and goals, if watching the news makes you miserable, obviously limit it. You still need to keep up to date because it's important for our mental health to know what's going on in the world. But to turn it off and never listen to it because it upsets you, that is dangerous. All right, because then you're not aware of what's going on. You're not prepared for what can happen, or you're not educated on reality, and it's really important in my view. So, on your bucket list, how many of you have got a bucket list? You know, like in a list of things you'd like to do. Do any of you have one? On mine, it was quite funny. On mine, I, one of the things on there is to actually go riding again. Now, you understand, every year that goes by, my body, I just sort of raise my eyebrows and go, yeah, right. Um, I could never get up on a horse again. And I went, no, there are ways to do that. I know there are ways to do that, so I could do it. Anyway, the interesting thing is that neighbor that has asked me to look after her cats has 2 horses. And how many of you are going, that's a win-win? So the first thing I'm going to go and do is to check out the horses. And if they look like, that they are horses that I can control, I will be a lot happier to consider um, getting back onto a horse. But just to be able to say I've done it, and I know you would all want to see that picture. But it's just like, all right. So Kimmy's saying she's got a few things on her bucket list. So if you've got things on your bucket list, give me some examples of the things you would like to do in your life. I still, as part of me, and I nearly did it, as part of me, I still would like to go down to the south. I've always felt that culture would appeal to me. My problem is their food is difficult for me, but their culture really is something that I would love to experience. So Kimmy's saying her riding days are over, right? So, well, I could say the same, but I've decided not to say that. I still have that dream, and I think I'm getting closer to having that dream come true. Now, could I go to a riding stable and just do it that way? Yep. So it's not a big thing on my to-do list. But there's part of me that goes, I think I'd still like to do that. I'm very lucky that I've traveled the world and done a lot of things that people seem to do later on when they retire. But that doesn't fascinate me anymore. It's strange, isn't it? So, if you have a bucket list, do you also have weekly goals? And do you have daily goals, right? That was the whole point of this, that, you don't do these things by accident. You do them because they're planned. All right. Jody's saying, I have dreams of traveling to Italy. And instead of saying that will never happen, I'm keeping the dream alive by watching travel vlogs on YouTube. Yes, we can now do a lot of these things virtually. All right. So you can visit Italy through somebody else's, vicariously through somebody else's trip. Yep, good idea, Jody. Jody, I know that going to the beach is on your bucket list because it's been there ever since I've known you. And I have heard all the excuses in the world. So it makes me wonder whether you actually do want to do it. I know you do. So if you know that staying connected is a good way to be happy, right? It's one of those things that you can teach yourself to do, is stay connected. My question to you is, what have you got on your goals for this week about meeting somebody for a coffee or getting on Zoom and having a conversation? I had a great chat with Benji yesterday. And, my chats with Benji. I had an awesome chat with Doug. And, it's just like, I find when I talk to them, it makes a whole lot of difference in my life. All right. And now some of you know that I've, reestablish my communication with my sister after many, many years. And, that's an important connection, even if we are like chalk and cheese, right? It's just still an important connection. Jody's saying no excuses about the beach trip, but roadblocks we haven't found practical solutions for. Okay. Yeah, Kimmy's saying that she wants to travel too. Where would you like to go to, Kimmy? And Jody's saying the beach is my happiness place. It always has been. I know that. I can remember that from when I first started talking with you. So again, you guys have just had an incredibly stressful couple of days, waiting for the results of that MRI. Um, a great time to start planning a trip and think about all the roadblocks and go around them. All right? Go around them. You don't have to go over them, go around them. So, how about connection to something greater than ourselves? How many of you, your connection with God, makes you happy? Or whoever you perceive God to be. For a lot of people, that is part of their happiness. Doesn't mean they necessarily go to church. I know an awful lot of people who do that online, and and still have that incredible connection to their God. And then you've got, what about connection with others? For example, um, do you volunteer? Do you give selflessly to to other things? Right. Kimmy's coming back with some of her bucket list. She'd like to go to a beach. She'd like to go hiking and camping. Can you still do all of those, Kim? Because you said you couldn't ride. So can you still go to a beach? Are you capable of doing that? Are you still capable of hiking, even if it's for not very long? And if the answer is yes, I will know that you mean it if you book it. You know what I mean? So the same as I haven't booked to go riding yet. You know that I'm a sort of, I'd like to do it, but it's not high on my list of things to do. So very important. I would also mention to you that when you volunteer, it takes you away from just yourself. All right. You're not, you know, you make other people happy as well as making yourself happy. By the way, so often creative people get a lot of benefit from joining groups because they can do things to help other people and that brings them joy. Yeah, Kimmy's saying that she's making plans to, go to the beach or go hiking or go camping. And she's saying, if I do it, it can't be far away. That's not the point. Can you do it? And the answer is yes. Will you do it is a whole nother thing. So well done. What are you doing to stimulate your brain? We talk about this often. All right. Part of being happy is to keep your brain stimulated. And to me, part of my creativity obviously is doing broadcasts and preparing for them and doing them. It is, every week I educate myself a little bit more about something because every week I decide what topic I want to talk about, and then I will do some research on it. And it's really interesting that we're going to be celebrating 10 years of doing this year, and it's like, who knew that there could be so many different ways of looking at a very few simple subjects, if you think about it, in terms of feelings. All right. But we've managed to fill, 10 years worth of information in that time. And I certainly love doing the research, and I certainly love hearing the stories from people that, it's made a difference for them, obviously. And so to me, it's like, hey, it's part of my happiness. Now, Do I always feel like doing it? No. But the fact that it's booked, it's booked. I got tickets, right? That 99.9% of the time, uh, whether I'm not feeling well or whatever, it doesn't matter. I think you guys know that something really serious has to come up for me to cancel a broadcast. And so, it's just like, hey, it's part of my joy. All right, so Kimmy's saying she wants to learn about things and she wants to do more exercise. Yeah, and that's awesome. Oh, that was a big, big happiness moment for me this week, where I am now back down to the weight that I was before the pandemic started. I think that's correct. I'll have to check that. But it is just wonderful to be able to be there. I'm still obese. Don't get me wrong, but now I am this far away from my first major goal, and it's taken 2 years to get there. But what I'm doing is I've got there at the beginning of spring. Do you understand how important that is? That's what I got really excited about. Was I didn't just get there at the end of spring and summer where I was out a lot and doing things. I am already this far away from that goal at the beginning of spring. So my feeling is that I will be way past it by the time we get to the end of summer or autumn. That's exciting. If I carry on doing what I'm doing that is working. Jody's saying, I wanted to go on a picnic, but we were in lockdown. We made picnic food and got set up with a cute tablecloth and had living room floor picnic. Ah, it's not the same, but I love the idea of thinking outside the box. Yes, you see, what you did is, it's not what you can't do. Can I still have a picnic? And now, Jody, if you want to have a picnic, and it's 70 degrees outside, open the windows, have a picnic. Or, Jody, you've got grass outside your place. Are you allowed to use it? I mean, are you allowed to picnic on the grass outside? Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, as one step closer of what can I do, as opposed to, you don't even have to leave the property. Yeah. So obviously we'll wait for Lionel's arm to be usable again. But it's just like, think about that. You could have a picnic. And Jody, I bet you if you do that, other people in your building will do the same thing. If you remember what I said about the community here, which is there wasn't a whole lot of community spirit going on. And I said to my neighbors, well, and they're all complaining about it. And I said, well, why don't we do it? What? Well, we can talk about it or we can do it. And look at that. The last thing we did, 20 people pitched up. And we're not even trying. So the thing is, other people want to be happy too. So yes, Kimmy's saying, I got back down to the weight before the pandemic too, but I keep going up 3 or 4 pounds and then back down again. Okay, Kimmy, you understand the thing to remember is the trend, all right? So Kimmy, I was down here, and then the fire and the pandemic, they hit roughly the same time. And then what happened was I comfort ate to that sort of ridiculous level, the most weight I've ever had on in my life. And then I started to take control and I came down. It didn't look as good as that, that's for sure. Trying to be a little bit real here. Anyway, so I came down like this. And then I came home. And then that went up again. And then I came down again. And then something else happened, right? Went up. But the interesting thing is that if I started here and climbed up here, I now have done this like this. Does that make sense, Kimmy? That I keep going back up again as well to 2 or 3 pounds or whatever. But if you look at it, the trend is one way. All right. And it's taken 2 years, but I now know. If you remember, I said I didn't want to diet. Remember, I said that I didn't want to diet because that wouldn't make me happy. I wanted to learn how to eat differently, slowly, bit by bit, so that I didn't feel I was depriving myself. I think you all know. You're going to watch this evening. I make some of the tastiest food. And and I'm diabetic as well, and I'm still keeping my blood sugars under control. But yesterday I felt like I had crackers with brie cheese and apricot jam. Now, that should be an absolute no-no for somebody with diabetes, but you see, I don't do it all the time. Right? I really felt that I was over the flu, and I celebrated with 6 crackers with some brie cheese on it and a little, I think the total amount of apricot jam was a teaspoon. But every piece had a little bit of apricot jam. And it wasn't no sugar added apricot jam or apricot. It was, full blast stuff. And guess what? My blood sugar this morning was 5.9, which I think is about 106, I think, for those of you who understand that. Okay. So if you want to be happier, remember your creativity and stimulation. Do something creative, do something that stimulates your brain. All the time I was sick, I started to do jigsaws online, all right, because I knew I needed to stay still, drink lots of fluids. And, doing an online jigsaw puzzle meant there wasn't a whole lot of mess in the house. But on the other hand, I was being creative. Make sense? All right. So, it's like very important. Oh, Jody's talking about that 106 was awesome. Jody, just to let you know that for the week that I had the flu, my blood sugar was, I don't know what it is in American, but it was in the eights, 8.0, 8.2, somewhere in there. And I wasn't eating much. So that was a bit scary, but I went, hey, you're sick, and your body is, trying to protect you. So with the fact, Jody, all that you've taught me is, as long as you know what you're eating is good, then it's, the 8 isn't as scary as it needs to be. All right. And you taught me that illness does that to your blood sugar. So, that's one of the reasons why it's a bit like, I was saying that if you can change your mood, that means you've got emotional intelligence. All right. If you know that illness will make your blood sugar increase, but you know that, you can bring it back down again just by carrying on eating the right things. Now, obviously, when I was sick, I wasn't having brie cheese and apricot jam, but it was my reward. So remember, stimulate your brain. Right? Stimulate your brain. Keep stimulating your brain. And even if it's doing, like a jigsaw puzzle online, I got to the point, because I'm competitive with myself, right? So it's like, how long will it take me to do? I was doing about 200 piece jigsaw puzzles, right? Because I wanted to keep it fun, but I also needed to be small enough that, it was exciting to do it. And I was doing 200-piece jigsaw puzzles in about 35 minutes, I think. And I went, okay, that's not too bad. Yes, exactly. Kimmy's saying that her blood glucose goes up when she's sick as well, as it does for all of us. Control it by eating right and exercise and lots of fluids. All right, Kimmy, fluids help as well. So let me think what the next thing was. Oh, I lost my cell phone. Now, everybody says to me, Sal, why have you still got a landline? And one of my answers is, how else will I find my cell phone? So I lost my cell phone. Do you think I could find it? Now, I don't put my cell phone in many places. And I always am aware of the fact that, men's clothing has decent, deep pockets in it where it's easy to carry a cell phone. Women's clothing, not so much. So anyway, I looked everywhere about 4 times. You know that feeling? And you go, did I take it outside? No. Where is my cell phone? And then, after about 4 goes around the house to try and find it, I decided I'm getting frustrated, so I need to change my mood, and I can change my mood by finding my cell phone. Do you know that is what I call a conscious, I want to change this. And so I grabbed my phone and I phoned my cell phone. Now, the other problem I have is that I'm hard of hearing. So I knew that could be a challenge. So what I was prepared to do was to keep phoning it from each part of the house, the front end, the middle, and then the back end of the house, right? So then I started in the front end and I could hear it, which meant that it was probably in the middle section. So I walked towards the middle section, and sure enough, it was getting louder as I walked towards there. Well, I've got all those cubies in my life. It was in one of those. How on earth did it get in there? Who cares? That's where it was. And how happy do you think I was when I found it? You see, it's about, did I change my mood by focusing? Think about that. I needed to focus on finding that phone to find it. And so there we have it. By the way, this gave me great joy this week. Somewhere over the time of the fire and everything else, I lost my bucket. And so I decided I was going to buy a new bucket. And then I saw these and I thought they were so clever. They are fold-up buckets. And what I liked about it was when you don't need it, you can fold it and put it away. You see, buckets take up a lot of room, don't they? And then I also thought they are so useful in this sort of thing. I could multi-purpose it as well. So I bought a pack of 2. Don't you think that's cute? And you could. Anyway, I thought it gave me great joy. Great joy. Of course, folding it back up again is a challenge for me, but I'll do that after the broadcast. By the way, that's 20 liters. That's 10 gallons. So that's a pretty big one. So I'm happy about that. Now then, another thing. Yeah, I like the Kimmy's saying she likes the color. Kimmy, I thought it'll be easy to spot where it is, right? If I've got it with water in it, it's going to be pretty easy to see. The question is, will I be able to carry it half full of water? Because it's wider than a normal bucket. So we'll find out. And the other one is a black one. So I was thinking, that's also very useful. Now then, when I had the flu, I found I couldn't use my CPAP machine. For those of you who don't know, I have a machine that I wear at night to help me breathe because I have sleep apnea. But what I found was because I had the flu, I was choking during the night so much that it was just like scary. And so then I looked at it and I went, if you are scared of choking at night, then maybe for a while it's better you don't use your machine. In other words, until you're better, maybe it is better for you not to be on the machine. It's not like, it's life-threatening for me. It just helps me. So I did some experiments, and I haven't been on my machine for over a week, and it seems to be fine. Oh, interesting. Kimmy's saying they took her off her sleep apnea for a while, but they left her on oxygen. Okay, so you just had the little nasal thing with the oxygen going in? That's actually maybe that's something I should look at, Kimmy, is maybe to go back to the nasal one when that's a very good idea. Right, and Jody's saying the same thing. I can't use the machine when I feel ill. I have the same fear of choking. Well, I have definitely been choking. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a fear of, it is genuinely choking. Oh, Kimmy's saying that it's about too much air going into her stomach. That's a very good point. Good thing. All right, so the I was thinking of some things that, what could we do that would be stimulate our brains and bring us the fun of, achievement. And I was thinking, um, have you planned this year's garden? If you've got a garden, are you all ready? Have you planned it? Have you got the seeds? Have you got, when are you going out to get the plants if you like planting seedlings? When are you doing your next experiments? Now then, you all know I've been doing the big experiment with the potatoes, and I thought I'd show you. I'm not moving it anymore now until I have to start taking it apart. But I did want to show you, what I will do every week is just show you the picture of it. It is now, it's a little dark. I took this at night. Okay, so what I want you to see is that it's now that tall. Last week, when I showed you the picture, it was up to about here. And this week, it is already here. Okay? And what I want you to see is, can you see this window line here? I think by the time I show you the picture next week, it'll be above that window line. I've got a blind behind that, but you can still see the line. Okay? So that's pretty good. I am on a mission this year to be able to grow lettuce. For some reason, lettuce is a real challenge for me. And I think I might have the answer. This is, can you see little lettuce seeds? And the trick is, and I didn't know that, lettuce need light to germinate. I didn't know that. So here we go. And I was so excited with that. I planted another. I put in. See, I've got it here in damp paper towel, and then it's got a cover over it to stop it drying out. And then I've also did the same with some kale, and you can probably see. You see that? Okay. So that's exciting. And now what I'm waiting to come this week is some, what do you call it? Microgreen stuff, where you sprouted seeds. I want to grow my own sprouted seeds because that is healthy, right? Because they're fresh. They're not packaged, right? I just want to be able to go to my little thing of sprouted seeds and add them to my salad this summer. So you understand, this whole thing about that weight loss is that bit by bit, I am changing how I eat. And bit by bit, I'm going, what's the next step? And Jody, I really have to thank you. Jody's told me that for Lent, she was going to only eat out of her freezer in terms of vegetables. Well, what I did is before Lent started, I sorted out a whole lot of frozen foods that were in my big fridge here. And I've got a deep freeze absolutely full to the gannels, and this fridge in here was absolutely full. So what I did was I reorganized um, one half of the freezer in the kitchen here, and my goal was to only eat out of that freezer for Lent, right? Unless I emptied it. And but I assure you, I am amazed how much I've eaten from it, and I'm hardly seeing any space. So it's really interesting just how much food I must have stored. And I did do one thing that I wasn't on my list, but it made me happy. I did buy the steak went on sale this week, and I did buy steak because now I got something that makes really good steak. All right. Yes, Kimmy's saying I've been getting the deli containers that they use to put cookies and pastries in, use them to grow seeds. You know what these are? Um, I absolutely love these crackers. They're rosemary crackers. And the seeds that you just saw, this tray is from here. So good stuff. Reuse, recycle. Well done. I'm a great believer in that. Now then, the next time you feel a little bit lonely, you see, it's a really good idea if you want to switch your mood, is to give yourself permission to feel it, but then have somewhere to go in your mind, all right? This is where I'm going to go. So, how about this one? Did you hear about the little boy, 11, who walked 600 miles? I don't know if he walked all the way, but he went 600 miles on his own with no money. He did have a phone, and what else did he have? Oh, and a telephone number written on his hand. 600 miles across Ukraine. So, this is the whole thing. If I'm feeling a bit scared, like, can you imagine? First of all, they're now all reunited. His mother and siblings are all reunited outside Ukraine. But can you imagine, first of all, being his mother and saying, I need you to do this so you will be safe? Can you imagine sending your 11-year-old on his own with no money, a cell phone, and a telephone number across Ukraine? Oh, I mean, and when they interviewed the mother, they said, did you think he would be okay? And she said, yeah, he's smart. Right? And how many of you wouldn't let your adult son do it? Never mind an 11-year-old. So, you look at it and you go, do we overprotect each other? So, yeah, Kimmy's saying she would have done it. Yeah, exactly. And so, it's really interesting to see, if you want to see the upside of things, look at the good things that are happening, and for all the horrific things that are happening in Ukraine. But look at some of the incredible stories we are hearing. Did you see the grandmother who's turned her whole house into a workshop, making flak jackets, and breast armor and stuff for the Ukrainians? All right. And she's got men and women with sewing machines in there, and they are doing whatever again, it's not what you haven't got, it's what you have. And how are they making them? They're making out of scrap metal from cars. All right. So, you look at it and you go, right, and they've got people who are good with metal working, all right, making the pattern, or they've got the pattern, and then they make the breastplate thing, and then they're using other recycled material to use for padding, and then they use other material that they've had been donated. It's just like incredible stuff to watch. All right, what is happening that is positive? And so you look at it. So stimulate your brain. Work on what you can do. Don't sit around going, well, I'd like to do X, Y, and Z, but I can't. What can you do? Because if you keep coming up with things you can do, what do I know? I know that playing with my experiments is way more important to me than having a neat and tidy house. That's what I realized. Right? Because I found the time, as sick as I was, to keep watering my plants and things. But I didn't. And by the way, my new self-watering system is working like a charm. I don't know why I didn't do that before, but I didn't. Maybe you want to repaint a room, right? Give yourself a challenge, right? Do something that will bring you happiness, right? I am amazed what $30 of paint will do to a room. And it's exercise, bending, stretching, up and down ladders. It's exercise. If you happen to have a teaspoon collection, maybe it's time to get it down and rearrange it and remind yourself of all the places you went to get them. It's just like it will bring you pleasure. It will make you happier that day. Or maybe you want to redo your recycling system. But find something to do that uses your creativity and stimulates your brain. All right. I think some of you know that what I do now is I have a rotation. I call it a rotation. And so I will be sitting at my computer, but I don't want to sit there for too long. So every half hour, if I've been sitting at my computer for half an hour, I get up and I do a rotation. And the rotation, actually, no, I lied there. I lied. Every time I want to pee, I do a rotation. And it starts in my bathroom, which is the back of the house. And then as I come through the house back to the computer, I visit every room in the house and I do one thing. One, right? So I come out of the bathroom and, is everything tidied up? Have I taken all my pills? Da, 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 da. And I do that until it's all done. And then I move to the bedroom. I do one thing each trip. Then I go to the bedroom and I do one thing. And here's another thing that drove me insane. You remember I said to you about I was building this drying rack on rollers, and that the poles didn't fit into the roller section. Well, I decided I would get hold of Amazon and in turn ask them to give me the contact address for the manufacturer, because I'm pretty sure it came out of China. And I wrote to them and said, hey, this is what's happening. Do I have the wrong pieces, or because I see when I look at the comments about this thing, so a lot of people haven't had problems, but one or two have. So did I just get the wrong pieces? In other words, you make other drying rack things with different configuration, and I've got the wrong roller sections for my particular thing. Anyway, so they said to me, give us your address and we'll send you the replacements immediately. So now I will wait. But can you see that I could choose to get frustrated, which I was, angry, which I was, but not for long. I then said, what can you do? I can find out from Amazon, look at the trouble I've had with getting this unit right. But now is it bringing me a lot of happiness? So sometimes you do need to go through some frustration. Sometimes you do need to go through a tough time. Sometimes your weight will go up before it suddenly drops down. It's like it's part of life. And so now I will wait patiently for the next bits to arrive, and I'm not worrying about it until they do. It's just like, okay, I'll wait now. So do you feel secure? And that is another thing, because when we've got stuff going on around the world, maybe part of your unhappiness is not feeling secure. And therefore, again, do what you can, all right? Don't concentrate on the fear, concentrate on what can I do, because it'll use your creativity. So I found a lot of reasons to chuckle this week. Yeah, my dear brother my dear brother was driving me insane because literally he was changing the plans of his trip every 9 hours or something. And then the only way I could sort of balance that out was to go, I am so glad I'm not his travel agent. So now each time there's a change, I go, I am not going to book things and change them, right? Because I'm going to look like an idiot. And it's going to cost me money I can't afford. So I'm not doing that. This is called, I think I might even have to wait until he lands to make sure he's going to be there. You know what I mean? It's like, really, I just got other things on my mind. I'm doing one other thing. It's on my rotating to-do list. I've got things that come up regularly per season. And one of the things that's been frustrating me is how many people are sending me emails that I really don't open. You know what I mean, don't you? So my new trick now is every time that pops up into my to-do list, I unsubscribe I just have to unsubscribe one. But what I found is I normally do 2 or 3. And the thing is to unsubscribe that name, whatever it is, and then search for all the emails that they've sent you, which you can do pretty easily, and then just get rid of all of it. You can always subscribe again if you want to. I found that I probably will never ever get back to a usable amount of emails in my inbox, but at least I know I'm taking the right steps. Not perfect, but I'm taking some good steps. I felt really good this week because after having a week of the flu, I literally stripped my whole bed and washed everything. I washed all my bedding, obviously, because that's obviously something we do on a regular basis. But I also washed my duvet. I also washed my pillowcases, the fancy ones. And then what I did, this is a trick that I've never done before, but it worked. When the whites went into the dryer, I threw in the pillows. In other words, I didn't wash the pillows, but what I did is I threw them in with my wash when it went into the dryer. So the steam, would help clean them. And they look so pretty when they came out. So we're going, okay, there were a lot of germs on those, and now I have basically cleaned all of my bedding. Oh, and that included I have like sheepskin blankie as a shearling one, but you know what I mean, underneath my uh, bottom sheet. So nice. And then I had the mattress cover. So everything got washed. It took me all week, but it's done. And that made me feel good. It was like, all right, I'm doing what I can to get the bugs out of my house. So that was a good idea. Jody's saying a great idea to unsub one at a time. It's less daunting. Yeah, and Jody, Mondays, you know what I mean? Put a day to it. That every Monday you will get rid of one more. Or I know you do your phone calls on Mondays, so make it Tuesdays or whatever. So I now have a list of things that I want to do every season. All right. And doing that complete wash is part of it. Uh, the other thing is, as you can imagine, a week of having the flu meant that my battery died in my car. So I was just so grateful and happy that I have a battery charger and a good one. And I know that I can put it onto my car and within an hour, I mean, if I needed it in an emergency, it will automatically start my car. But what I wanted to do was to top up my battery. And so I left it for 2 hours, knowing that 1 hour would charge it. But I left it for two just to make sure everything was good. And I'm getting so good at doing that quickly now and not being scared and just knowing it's a good idea to do it. If you've got a car, it's a good idea to top that battery up. Even if you can still start your car, make sure maybe once a season that you top that battery right up. Uh, it will help. So the good news was that obviously getting the flu, I lost weight. And so I'm happy I've now lost over 5 pounds this year. Um, and I am, as I said, well on my way to reaching my first major goal. So you look at it and you go, think about that. I can look at having the flu. I mean, there were a couple of days there where I wasn't sure I was going to make it. But, I kept thinking, what can I do that would bring me pleasure? I'm very good at sleeping, watching television with my eyes closed. So there were a couple of episodes that I was watching where I had to actually restart it about 3 times, so that I could see the next bit. But the problem was by the time it got to the bit that I wanted to watch, I was asleep again. That's how sick I was. But I knew I was getting better when I could actually catch up, and I was going, I'm getting better. I'm not falling asleep as quickly. So my whole point of this broadcast is think about how to change your mood. If you have the ability to change your mood, your life will be happier. And if you think about it, emotionally intelligent people do not hold on to negative stuff. They feel it the same as everybody else, but they don't hold on to it. They shift. All right. So if you're feeling lonely, remember that little kid and go, wow, how lonely must he have felt traveling 600 miles on his own? And I don't have that problem. Let me get on with my life. All right. If you are feeling sick, which is what happened to me, right? I was really sick with the flu, right? I kept thinking to myself how lucky I was that the bombs weren't dropping over the top of me at the same time, or that I was hearing air raid sirens going off and I had to get to, sick as I was, that I had to get up and get to a shelter. So you look at it and you go, it's within our control how long we want to hold on to these things. And if you can see that, if you can understand it, Jody, I want to know what I know one of the things that you and Lionel did to survive the time getting up to first of all because you knew that MRI was going to have to happen, And from the moment you heard that, the stress levels must have gone through the roof. So, what other things did you do? I know that you decided to watch certain movies, right? But I'm really interested to know, because I know you are emotionally intelligent, that what else did you do to distract yourself, even for a short time, away from something that was so frightening for you? And by the way, to all my viewers, I'd like to really thank you, because your prayers were great. And, now Lionel's only major problem is to get hearing aids and to cope with the fact there's nothing in his brain, um, which some of us knew already. So think about that, all right? What, what it, we can do it if we focus on it and make it a goal to shift that mentality. And most of all, for those of you who are friends of people, all right, which hopefully we all are, but what do they need to hear? Um, what 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 are you doing to help other people change their mood? What do I know? If Dougie loves to talk, world politics. So if I want to distract his mind for a while, I just have to talk to him about some world politics. Um, you know, Benji and I spend a lot of our time talking about the girls and everything else. And his concern now is that, um, any minute now, Peanut is going to be born, I think in June. And so I call her Peanut. I was, that's like my name for her. But it's just like, it's just like we talked about those and all those sort of things, and it's just fun to listen to him change his voice tone and everything, and it just is wonderful to hear. And then I thought it was so cute. He got quite concerned and he said, "Was there something you wanted to tell me that you phoned?" "Oh, I know, just checking up." He said, "Apparently, I don't do that." And so I'm learning that if I want to stay connected, it's not all the time that Benji has to phone me. The telephone works both ways. Because if I always wait for Benji to do it, then I'm going to get angry or frustrated or whatever that he doesn't love me. And I know that's not true. He probably feels the same because I don't phone him. So I decided I'm going to improve that. So Jody's saying that they watched movies, they played board games, and even talking about the fear helped both of us. Yes, because that's be prepared, not scared. Well, of course it was scary anyway, Jody. I know that. That's human nature. But being a little bit prepared, uh, would have helped, right? If you knew if this happens, what do you have to do? And you would have done. Right. Cooking was a nice distraction as well. Yes, for some of it. I've always said to people who know me, I know when I am struggling with something, when I find myself baking. I don't know why, but when I am feeling stressed about something, but I'm not conscious of it, I apparently start to bake. So now it's a red flag for me. If I find myself suddenly making cupcakes, I stop and I I know. Well, I finish making the cupcakes first because I'm not stupid. I then take the cupcakes, and while I'm eating them, I go, okay, what was it you wanted to distract yourself away from that you wanted cupcakes? Okay. Um, Yes, Jody's saying Lionel had never had an MRI before. So I talked about my experience of the process. Yes, and aren't we lucky, Jody, that we can put things up on YouTube and see the process start to finish. There are so many things today that we never had in when 20, 40 years ago. And it's just like I'm amazed how many things we can research today and check on, and it's just amazing. And I get very frustrated. Funny enough, sometimes don't want to see the video. I just want the written word, and I want to be able to read it slowly. and bit by bit. And then if there's something there that I don't quite understand, then I look that bit up on the video, because obviously I don't understand that properly. So let me see what that looks like. And then I go, oh, that's what they're talking about. Okay. You know, but I am so grateful for all that we have. And yes, I was sick as a dog. Don't know where that expression came from, um, but you know, I was so grateful to have the friends that I had. Thanks, Jody, and everybody else that cared about me. But also, it was just like the big challenge, and I was aware of that because I try to stay emotionally intelligent. The big challenge for me was to give myself a week off. Do any of you relate to that? That actually mending my body was more important than doing anything else. And it was so difficult for me to give myself permission to do that. But you know, look at me now. um, you know, it's just like I am just so grateful that I have learned how to be happy and giving yourself. When did you last go on vacation, people? Right? When did you last go on vacation? Because we're out of that habit as well. All right. And so probably if you work for a living, you probably did take vacation. But for those of us who are retired or are at home all the time, you know, that's difficult. Wow. Jody, how did you find that so quickly? Jody says the origin of the phrase sick as a dog can go back to the early 1700s, when it was common to compare undesirable things to dogs. Well, we don't like that, do we? Ah, okay. The explanation for this isn't that people didn't like dogs. It is that diseases such as the plague were often spread via animals like rats, birds, and unfortunately dogs. Yeah, yeah, I knew there was an interesting thing to it. Thanks, Jody. So let's look at this and go, you can teach yourself to be happy. Do you all get that now? It's not somebody else's job. It is your job. And if you don't know what makes you happy, how can you do it? Right? You know that doing experiments, even if it scares the living daylights out of me, like cooking steak on my gizmo, even if it scares the living daylights out of me, it keeps me alive. Right? It's just like my adrenaline pumps, and I'm. How many of you can see me standing there? You know, before I put that steak on there, I had a tea towel close to the smoke detector so I could grab it and wave it. And then I made sure I knew which buttons I was going to turn off, starting with the oven. Right? You know, it was just so funny. And it was just like, maybe when you're feeling down, do something that really challenges you. Um, but you I know that doing the experiment was really important. It's absolutely pathetic in a way how much joy I get out of, all right, this year, so help me, I am going to grow lettuce from seed. Because once I've got it right, I will be able to feed myself homegrown lettuce for the rest of my life. But for some reason, I've been really challenged with it. Now, of course, I've got this far, people. I've got little baby seeds. Now, the trick is I'm going to take, how many of you know I'm scared now? I'm going to kill them. But I ain't got to take the next step, and that is to take the cover off it now and sprinkle a little bit of earth on it. Okay. Um, so that it's now sitting on earth, but, and I'm going to I'm going to sieve very quietly, very thin amount of very light soil and Koya mix. And then I'm going to sprinkle that over a little bit every day until it starts actually growing properly. But can you understand that the fear that I have about doing that? But it's not going to make me unhappy. I mean, I'm scared I'm going to kill it because I've got this far now. But, it's like, hey, you probably will. But look, you're getting better. And that makes me laugh. You see, it's like I don't expect to get it right the first time or even the first year, right? I know that learning these things takes time. And I am a patient person, and it becomes very personal. I will learn how to grow lettuce. Do you understand that? I will learn how to grow lettuce. I really will. I will. Might not be this year, but I will learn. And I won't quit until I've got it. And the first lettuce that I grow that way, you know how good that's going to taste. But in the meantime, last year, I started to learn how to grow things from. Uh, this is the bottom piece of. Okay. Of a piece of celery that came into the house. It's the bottom of it. And all I did was to put it on some wet towel. Okay. And look how beautifully it's grown. Now you're all going, you probably just killed it, Sal. Yeah? Possible. We'll see how it looks next week. But how many of you can see I've got lots of garnishing to put on my food? And I think it is possible that growing 2 of these would probably keep me going all year. That's what my experiment is. I think some of you know that, right? And remember the experiments with the chives. These chives I bought January the 25th. We're into March. January the 25th. I've still got chives. Still growing. And to me, it was quite exciting because when I went into the garden this week, I noticed the chives that were in the garden, they come back every year. And so I've got these incredible chives growing in the garden as well. But now, can I feed myself with chives for the whole winter? Yes, it took 2, right? It took 2 of these. And by the way, the first lot I have now put into earth. They're in their own little containers now, growing as they will go into the garden this year. So, it's just like I'm learning. It's slow, but I'm learning. And it feeds me. Nurturing seedlings, learning how to look after them is, keeps me happy. So know what makes you happy and do it. You are responsible for your own happiness. It is not they did it to me. They made me unhappy. They made me angry. No, they didn't. They were just doing their thing. Your reaction to them and how long you hung on to it is what made you unhappy. So let's get a grip. And this evening, for those of you who didn't see, hang on a second, I must just show you that. This evening we will be doing, I'm going to tell you how I did my dehydrated fish, but also I wanted to show you how I made this. I was thinking, wouldn't that look really pretty though? as decoration on a charcuterie board, or with cheese and stuff. It looks so pretty. And then my new fries. So when I feel like having fries, these are the ones I'm going to make. And by the way, I can have fries anytime I want, as long as I make them like that. And why? Because they're not deep fried or anything else. Um, and they look so pretty. They make me happy. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, let us keep reminding ourselves that our happiness is our business, nobody else's. We have control if we want to. Jody and Lionel, congratulations on doing a wonderful job of staying sane this week. I think it was an absolute education to listen to you and to hear what you were doing, and to um, to know what was going on. I was honored that Lionel wanted to tell me personally what the results were, and a big thanks to Lionel for allowing me to share the news with everybody. Very, very thoughtful of you. Thank you. This is Dear Mama Sal saying thank you, Jody, for all the help. And we will see you tonight when we'll play with it. Bye-bye.